Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are back with volume 2 of the Very Strange Things collection from Apocalypse. If you missed my introductory video on Apocalypse Polish, they're an indie brand based in Georgia, and if you couldn't tell by the name, they focus on fictional, dystopian, and apocalyptic content. Their debut collection was inspired by Stranger Things and it was split up into 2 parts. Volume 1 had these warmer toned colors, a lot of like reds and oranges, while volume 2 is very blue heavy with a couple of purples in each. So as usual, I will save more of my thoughts for the end after some comparisons. For now, let's just get into the swatches. The first shade we have is the Right Side Up, which is a thermal linear holographic that's in this medium blue color when cold, as seen here in the bottle, that transitions to a lighter shade of blue when warm. This one had a really beautiful formula that was very pigmented and full coverage. I guess I can see it being a little bit thick, but I didn't find it difficult to work with by any means. If anything, I feel like it just helped in terms of getting this fully opaque in 2 coats. So as you can see, I'm starting to run a little bit warmer, and here's after another couple of minutes, so there's a little bit more of a stronger distinction between the cold and warm states. The next polish we have is Toto. I don't think we're in Hawkins anymore, which is described as a blue tornado of glitter with black, cobalt, and sapphire holographic glitters in a clear base. So this is basically the blue version of Very Strange Things from the first collection, and I absolutely love it. I think it is just so cool, so unique with the glitter mix and the color combination. As you saw from the first coat, it is in a clear base, but it's definitely very, very densely packed, so you could wear it as a topper, I guess. I mean, you could do whatever you want, but I personally think this looks super cool just built up on its own. The next shade we have is DemogoRgeous, which I love the name first of all, but this is described as a light blue-toned purple base with a blue to green to pink shifting shimmer and a light holographic dusting. No surprise, this was one of my favorites from the collection. I think it's just so beautiful. This also had a really silky smooth formula that was just very even coverage, so smooth to apply. I found it really even on the first coat alone, so you could just wear it for a light wash of color, but I thought it looked really great in 2 coats. You could see a little hint of nail line in more extreme lighting. Next we have the Upside Down, and yes, the name is actually printed upside down on the label, and of course you can see the logo is also upside down. This one is described as a deep sapphire blue with a pearly blue shimmer, blue holographic flakes, and red large particle shimmer. The formula on this was nice. It was a little bit thinner than I was expecting though. I figured it would be a little bit more pigmented, especially compared to the last shade, DemogoRgeous, because this one is just so much darker, but I found it to be a little bit sheer even after 2 coats, so I didn't love that. I feel like it just didn't look like it was a fully complete manicure, if that makes sense. So I think this is one of the shades that really needs a 3rd coat in order to look like what it looks like in the bottle. But once it is built up to be fully opaque, it is really gorgeous and glowy. Next up we have Flayer of Minds, which is described as a striking violet jelly loaded with red holographic microflakes. This one had a beautiful formula. It was just so easy to apply, super even coverage as well, which really matters because, as you know, if a jelly is uneven, especially on the first coat, it's going to show up in the subsequent layers and not really look the best. But I found that this one had really nice coverage. It was very juicy and plump and pigmented. I love the contrast of the red little microflakes in here too. They just stood out so nicely. I personally think it looks best in 3 coats because it intensifies the color while still looking really glassy. And rounding out the collection, we have Shock Jock, which is a true neon blue with a soft blue shimmer that shifts to red in extreme angles. So I will be honest, I didn't really see that. I could maybe see more of like a pink color, but I wasn't really able to capture that on camera. But even if it didn't shift to pink or red and it was just a blue polish, It is so beautiful. The formula again was really smooth and buttery. It was a little bit sheer on the first coat, maybe more similar to DemogoRgeous, where it still was very pigmented and I would say provided enough coverage to be fully opaque on 2 coats. I also noticed this was a little bit pearlescent, so you might want to be careful with your brush strokes. And here are my full hand swatches of the Very Strange Things Volume 2 collection. I'm wearing 2 coats of each in direct sunlight. Overall, I think they look great. Again, I think maybe Flayer of Minds in the top middle and the Upside Down in the bottom right are probably the only 2 that I would say would look better on the 3rd coat. Moving on to comparisons, we're starting with the right side up, and I was immediately reminded of Fauve's Fading Horizon, which is another blue linear holographic. It might not look similar in the bottle here, but remember the right side up is a thermal, so here it is side by side with the warm state. It's not an exact color match. I think Apocalypse is a little bit lighter, but Fauve is kind of close. And then when it comes to the cold state of the color, I was reminded of shades like Holo Taco's Blue Rizzler, which is a crushed holographic that also has like a pink shimmer, but it was more so the tone that immediately reminded me of the Apocalypse shade. And when it comes to a blue linear holo, I also had to show this next to OPI's LED Marquee, which I'm wearing on my thumb along with the Holo Taco shade because I was unfortunately just running too warm at this point. So I have the Apocalypse on my swatch stick, and as expected, it's basically a dupe for the OPI. Moving on to DemogoRgeous, I wanted to quickly show it next to Sylvanclaw's Crystal Gaze, which I just shared recently on my channel. I thought the base color of the purple was kind of similar, but the Sylvanclaw has like a reddish copper shimmer and all these extra hollow glitters. So for a closer shade, I also thought of Mooncat's Sirens Deceit, which has this lavender sheer base color with a blue shimmer and a dainty hollow. Mooncat is a little bit more sheer and the shimmer is a little bit darker, but they're basically dupes. I knew I also had to show this next to a couple of Cirque shades like Ohana and Isle of Capri, both of which are these light purple bases with blue shimmer and the dainty hollow. We basically have seen this color combination time and time again. As far as the Cirque shades go, Isle of Capri is a little bit more blue toned and maybe a little bit more opaque or maybe just darker, while Ohana is a little bit lighter or just maybe more sheer. So DemogoRgeous is like kind of in the middle of these 2. Lastly, I have a couple of bottle comparisons with Sylvanclaw's Winging It from their debut collection and Mooncat's Moonicorn, both of which are these light ethereal purples with these glowy shimmers and dainty hollows. Sylvanclaw, if anything, I think is described as pink, but it's like a purpley pink. Either way, they're both too light to be compared to DemogoRgeous. Lastly, for Shock Jock, I at first was struggling to find a close enough shade. I first thought of OPI's Feel Bluetiful and then Cirque's Tipsy Turvy. I know the OPI probably looks close here in the bottle, but it's just not really picking up color accurate. It's a lot more color accurate here on my nail, where it's almost this teal color, and then the Cirque is a little more similar, but it's just more sheer and lighter. For Mooncat comparisons, here it is next to Sinking Feeling, which is a cream, but that's more of a lighter sky blue. If anything, the color is maybe similar to Don't Cry Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls collab, but that one's obviously a sheer jelly filled with these flakies and glitter, so it's not really a dupe by any means, but just color-wise, it's kind of close. But I think the closest shades that I had in my collection were Olive Ave's Xiala and this really old Bluebird from my collection when they were called Lou It Yourself. This is in the shade Undecided. I would say that one is probably the closest because it is described as like a neon, but it is still a little bit darker than Shock Jock, while Xiala is a little bit lighter and also just slightly more muted. It's not really as neon as these other 2. Either way, both Olive Ave and the Bluebird are just cream, so I did also have to add a blue shimmer on top. I didn't exactly recreate it, but it's still kind of close color-wise. And lastly, for Flayer of Minds, I don't have a red metallic or holographic flaky to sort of like recreate it, but I figured I can still show it next to a couple of Cirque purple jellies like Eros jelly on the left and Royal jelly on the right. Eros is more of a warmer toned purple, which I think is very obvious once you see it on the nail. So I do think that Royal jelly is closer because it's a cool toned purple, but that one's a little too dark. Flayer of Minds is more sheer and maybe more blue leaning too. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Apocalypse's Very Strange Things Volume 2 collection. As always, I would love to know what you think of this release, if you already grabbed a few from it. It's hard to say which volume I like more because I feel like it's maybe easier for some people whether you prefer warmer toned colors or cooler tone, but for a Libra like myself, I just like both sets and individual polishes from each set. So, you know, it's hard to pick favorites, but when it comes to like favorites from this set, I definitely would say that Toto, I don't think we're in Hawkins anymore, is my top favorite. It might sound so funny because it actually reminds me a lot of Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. I guess just the color combination is like so spot on for me, and whenever I make that connection to Sub-Zero through a nail polish, especially when it's like not intended, I just like it so much more. But like I mentioned throughout my review, I definitely did love a lot of these shades. Similar to the first volume, I just really loved the formulas on Apocalypse. I thought they were so buttery and smooth, easy to work with, super highly pigmented. So if you haven't tried them out yet, I will have their website linked in the description box down below. And I am super excited to share their upcoming collection. Not anytime soon because it's going to be releasing like mid-May. So I'll have to double check when's the earliest I can like share it on my channel, but it is inspired by The Last of Us, and I am just so excited for that because it is like one of my favorite games, one of my favorite stories. As much as I would love to talk about it in the comments, please no spoilers for anybody who's like just watching the show right now, but if you are watching it, let me know what you think. And of course, don't forget to let me know what you think of Apocalypse, whether it's this collection specifically or if you like volume 1 more. I can't wait to read any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!